Hey everybody, welcome to Dental Voice with Zyris. My name is Rolando Mia, and we are here with Dr. Marc Liechtung. Now, check this out. This is the first of a four-part series of more detail around what he shared with us back at ADA in Houston. Here's the deal. So many dentists, whether you're young, in the middle of your career, or looking to transition, are trying to understand what's involved and what the value of their practice is. They go to consultants, all that type of stuff. Today, we're going to hear from Dr. Marc Liechtung, who's the executive director with Guardian Dental Partners. His role is he actually buys practices. So who else to hear than the person who actually does this? Dr. Marc, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Zyris, Rolando Mia is a dear friend, so knowledgeable, and it's my pleasure to be in the same screen as he is. And really, honestly, I take him for what he is. In all seriousness, on a serious moment, he is a lifer in the industry. He brings so much education to us, and I'm just lucky enough to be on this end. So, Ro, all kidding aside, we joke a lot with each other, and hopefully you'll see that friendship. But it's friendship through this industry, and we've grown to be brothers, and that is the truth.
Thank you, sir. So let's get straight into this.
Please.
One of the biggest questions that people are asking is how to increase the valuation of their practice. Now, when they do that, one of the what we find or what we hear is financials. It's a really sticky subject. Why are they so important? And a lot of people aren't quite sure what role they play. Why are they so important?
Well, financials are our report card out of the mouth. And if you think about it, what we do internal in the oral cavity, in the mouth, has been taught us, and we were trained to do it for years. But now there's a different level. Dentists have never, I ask this all over the country, dentists never thought they'd be selling their practices for millions of dollars. We are talking about an unbelievable opportunity for practices out there that have an understanding of their financials as much as they have an understanding of a treatment plan that has just intricacies in it, because that is what got us to this point. And what's going to get us to the next level is understanding our home, understanding what makes our practice go.
So wait a minute. When you say financials, oh yeah, I know what my production is and I know what I spend. I'm good. That's it, right?
Right. Yeah. No. We go out, and I hear this a lot. I do. It's crazy that you say that, because doctors tell me, I know I'm doing a $2 million practice, I make $1 million. But that's not the case. Because if you're a doctor, for instance, that has a thriving practice and you're making a lot of money, what happens if somebody has to replace you? What happens if your supplies are way out of whack and you're really not making as much as you should, but you never look at it? That is your detriment when you're looking to sell your practice.
So wait, let me share us an example, if you could, right up front here. Two practices. And
perfect.
You mentioned this thing about production and expenses. Yep. When you're looking at this to either acquire or offer someone something, do you have an example of two practices that are similar but very different?
Amazing question. So the world now, with the private equity and the groups that have come in and everybody hears of it, are really, what they have done is they have really looked at the dental field and dissected a practice and what they're looking for. So let's go with Rose's question. I am looking at two practices. Both are grossing $3.6 million. Wow. Both are in the city of New York. Both are thriving. But when you go through the financials, one has an enormous rent, high level of staff, labs that are incredibly too high for what they're charging. And how would you know that if you didn't look at it? And they present an EBITA, as you've all heard this word that scares all of us.
We'll get into that later, but keep going. I'm excited.
An EBITA of about $500,000. The other practice has a gross of top-line revenue, we call it. And let's use the jargon. Top-line revenue is gross. So you know that means that. 3.6 million with a very palatable, they own their space. They have a low rent and low maintenance. Their staff is in line and their labs are in line. They have a, believe it, $1.5 million EBITDA.
Wow.
Amazing. One is getting about $2.5–3 million for a purchase. The other one is getting between $9 and $10 million a purchase. The difference is drastic. The one, it doesn't matter partnership. It matters what you look at when you look at your personal practice P&L and understand it.
Wow. Hold on. So two practices, both grossing about 3.6 million. But even though the EBITDA, and I'm going to ask you that question in a second, one is $500,000, one's 1.5. The value of this practice, one is around 2 and one is almost 10. That's 5. Okay. EBITA, take a second and share with us, EBITA. What is that?
So, EBITA for those is you can look it up on Google. It's earnings before interest, depreciation, taxation, and amortization. What it means is you take out all the fluff, all the add backs, little Johnny's soccer school, the camps, the discretionary money, that is profit. When we strip that out and strip out all the things that go into making a practice run, you get the bottom line drop dead profit. That's not what we take home, doctors, because there's one other factor that we don't add in. EBITDA is what groups and private equity groups use, and purchaser, thank you, even private purchasers use to gauge the value or gauge the life of a practice, the equity value of a practice. And if we have things under control, for instance, rent is 4%, not 17%. Labs are 7%. If you're in technology, it's lower. And we can discuss that during our series. And not 12%. If you look at all those numbers, it adds to 500 and 1.6. The gentleman who had the 500 EBITDA charges $1,800 a crown, and they pay their lab $370. For $370, I would charge more money, or I'd find a cheaper lab. Understand? For the other gentleman who charges $2,100, has a deal with his lab for $175. The profit, the EBITDA drops to the bottom, is much stronger.
I love that. It's amazing to think about that. I guess financials are the pulse. I hear a lot of people who are very, very proud of, and should be, of the growth or the total production that they're making. And then you discover that on the bottom, I guess, because of not understanding that. Now, a lot of people say, I don't need to worry about that because I got someone who does that for me. Kind of what are your thoughts around having someone else deal with?
The other day, it's a great question. Great question. The other day, I met two doctors in a practice. Don't want to say where, but they had a very nice practice. And I asked them one simple question. I asked them, how many new patients do you get a month? And they said, we know that. Right? Stephanie knows it. And I said, Stephanie knows it, but Stephanie's not sitting here. Now, for those of you out there, and for those of you that listen to this podcast, these are the numbers, like how, just basic numbers that keep the lifeline of our practice. If we're not talking to anybody, if we're not including our team and thinks that it's not important to be involved, then we're allowing our team with not the full picture to run our financial success. Again, if we're not conveying to them all the facts about our practice, how much is rent? The staff is killing me, right? I hear that all the time. Yet when their top staff or one of their staff members come, I call them team members, come to you and ask you for a raise, off the hip, you'll say, well, I can't lose her, but you may not be able to afford her. And at some point, you have to look elsewhere. And you have to make that decision through numbers. If your value of your salaries and the compensation for that team is too high, meaning it's 65% instead of 45, 47, 48%, then what we're having is somebody who's just outspending what they're taking in. So you may be a great boss by giving the raise, but in 6 to 9 months, you're going to see your cash flow shrink to the point where you're going to have to fire her because you can't afford her.
So wait. Let me ask you this question. That's amazing. We hear a lot of times, I never share those are my financials.
Correct.
I don't share those with my team. How would you respond to that?
I would respond that that doctor at this point. So it's a funny thing how I respond when doctors ask me that. I said, we went out and hired this team. I hired a manager. I gave that manager carte blanche to run my practice, make sure my book is booked, make sure my supplies are paid for. Yet I'm not going to share with the team where we're going. So I want to give you all a scenario. You're in this. An assistant comes to you for a raise, and then you tell her we're not doing so well. Will she believe you? Or would she believe if you had 2 or 3 or 4 meetings in the last few months saying our revenue is down? How do we increase the revenue? And why are we not seeing those cases again, like more implant cases? Why are the cosmetic cases not being sold or committed to treatment? You're going to blame someone else.
Recall.
Right? And I'm telling you that recall. How's my hygiene since Corona? Is it rebounded back? But what about this year? This year, now that the rebound of COVID is over, how's our marketing? If we don't share that. Now, I do want to address one thing about numbers with teams. You don't have to tell all your teammates, all your staff members, the whole practice. You bring your hygiene department in. You discuss hygiene. You tell them last year, in the month of January, we did 72 sites of arresting. This month, we did 30. Are your hygienists getting burnt out? Is your recall down? These are the numbers, the metrics that show you the growth, the longevity, and the staying power of a practice. If you're not looking at it, we're going to look at it, and we're going to put a value on it commensurate with what we're seeing as far as the numbers go. So if I wanted to get my ordering under control and my ordering is out of control, I sit with the team that orders. They don't have to know I did 320,000 last month. They just have to know that we ordered 110,000 supplies last month and what is going on. And I want to know an accounting for it, rather than just writing it off your credit card and thinking, why do I have less money this month? We are our own CEOs. I know everyone has heard this, but here, in a 2-week span, you should have a meeting with assistants, hygienists, doctors, if you have associates or specialists, just to see how they're doing production-wise, if you need to tinker with certain things. And we're going to get into what I believe doctors should be performing or producing and the procedures they should be doing. But the commonality of this is if you're a busy doc, you need a right arm. You need somebody in that office that you could trust, that these notes are being taken, and then there's an action plan. There's an action plan. It's not gathering information. It's gathering information and then acting on it.
I love that. The context of that. Somebody knows in the practice does nothing for you as the owner dentist, as the owner of that practice. The owner has to know that. That's absolutely amazing. Let me ask you this question, and this comes up often. So, I'm listening to and I've written down some of the metrics associated with a thriving practice. I'm not there. Does that mean I'm dead? Or are there things that I can do to do that? Whether I'm early in my career, because, one of the questions is, wait a minute, I'm early in my career. I don't have to worry about these finances. I got lots of time. That's one. The second is, holy crap, I want to transition. My practice is worth nothing. So address the first one, which is I'm early in my career. Why do I have to pay attention to this? How would you answer that?
It's sort of like how we go about our life. If we start our life by certain ground rules, certain basic things we do in the morning, whether it's working out, whether it's eating right, whether it's praying, whatever you're into, that's how you establish your life. If you walk into your practice and say, no, it's no big deal. It's okay. You can order those. It's not a big deal. It won't be a big deal. Day 1, day 30, day 500, day 10,000 of your practice. establish ground rules, establish sequences, systems, people in certain places. If your front desk person is not answering the phone and answering calls to get people in because she's too busy on personal stuff, that's something you cannot tolerate from day one. Not then come to her after you're down in numbers and say, why are we down in numbers? Well, I told you Shirley's always on her phone. I know, but I never. Well, it does. It is a report card of the. I always tell this to Ro too, that I believe a practice is an organism. And like an organism, one part of that organism relies on the part in front of it. It's sort of like being on a football team. If you let the guys rush the quarterback can do anything they want, but they're done because you let them in. Every person in that practice serves an incredible role. We, as a CEO, listen, dentistry is not easy, but it's not easy to get those millions of dollars on a practice. It's a lot of work.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So for a young dentist, what I'm hearing is start out by setting clear guidelines and pay attention to the activities, the numbers, the financials early, and get in the habit of doing that so that they understand what's going on going forward. That's kind of where
young dentists, by the way, have so much at their fingertips, both from a standpoint of understanding the driving force, hygiene in the practice, what keeps the practice thriving, new patients. It seems to me that people in their 30s and 40s are more attuned to the way the practice they have really embraced, let's face it, social media and things online to learn. The older dentists who have never done it feel like it's sacrilegious for me to talk about numbers. Why?
Yeah.
When does it become about you and your family?
Get over it. So,
right? Go ahead.
So wait, now older dentists or dentists who are close, and they're now all of a sudden realizing, let me look at my numbers, and they realize, wait a minute, I want to be out in the next several years. Oh, crap. My EBITA or my profitability is quite low. The valuation of this thing, they all of a sudden realize the valuation is not where I thought it would be. What can they do?
Yeah. Well, like everything else, first thing is admit, realize, and come to terms with the fact that you've run your practice very well for you, but not for the next person, not for a purchase. If people that think their practices have a $700,000, $800,000 EBITDA, we go through it and it's got a 350. They're thinking they're going to make 4 or 5 million in today's market, and really it's about one-time gross in today's market. So what do? You make that assessment. Where is my staff? Are they in line with percentages? Are they in line with my supplies? On my supplies, am I buying technology because I want to tell people that I bought technology, or am I buying technology, which is very expensive, because it helps us, takes away impression material and the ordering of impression material? A doctor who's been using Impergum or polyvinyl siloxane and using these things for their years, it's going to be tough for them to switch. But there's always low-hanging fruit. The most important thing for an older doctor is that groups look for are succession plans. It's great to know your numbers, but the last part of an EBITA is owner's compensation. And I want to point that out so everyone understands this very, very carefully. Everything out of all the expenses and all the profit drop down, then is that doctor producing 90% of the dentistry? That's an expensive replacement. So if you have an EBITDA of $800,000 without a doctor helping you do that, and it's all on one doctor, that doctor that produced $1 million of that practice in different regions, let's say out in the Midwest, you're at 30%. On the East Coast, you're at 35%. To replace that doctor, he's doing $1 million. 800 minus 350 is 450,000 is the true EBITDA, doctors. So what am I saying? Take a look at your practice. Gear yourself, associates. Stop referring out if you find a great specialist. I'm never going to say, listen, I want everyone to know I had a tremendous practice in Lincoln Center in New York City. multi-specialty. I had associates. I had hygienists. I believe in the multi-specialty aspect. I've been proven right because now groups are looking for that. Why do you want to refer someone out? I'm sorry to the specialist, but why do you want to refer someone out when you can do same-day dentistry and putting in 2 implants? So we're going to get into the knowledge of the general dentist and what that goes through as we get on. But the bottom line is the first way of knowing your practice is really taking your own temperature and knowing and coming to realize that I've got to do things to increase my EBITDA. It's not
that's
and it
so
doesn't
huge.
take forever.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no. That's so huge, and I love the context around it. Long and short, if you're not paying attention, you as the owner dentist, as the owner clinician in that practice, then you're flying blind, which is kind of scary.
And
If you were to
exactly.
share with viewers, people watching this, what would you give as the top three key things with regard to financials that they need, that they can walk away from this session and do immediately to help them so that they know, quote unquote, or they at least have a picture of what they need to start paying attention to? What would those top 3, if not a couple more?
I think that's the drill down question of the day. What can I do, Dr. Liechtung, to get my practice where it seems to be in line with what they're looking for today? Because I will tell you something else about the better groups, the DPOs, the partnership organizations, which I am a part of and I am a partner of. And the reason I love it is because we value the dentists. So please disregard that old notion before I answer this question that groups just want no, they want partnerships. They want great dentists. Great dentists are great mentors. Great dentists don't do things over and over and over again. They don't take 4 impressions for a crown. Their supply bill is not out of the norm because they can't get it right. Their lab bills are double because they can't get it right. First thing, quality dentistry. You heard it here first. Quality dentistry. That's what we look for. I'm going to say this. In my company, in the company I'm with, Guardian, we'll kill a deal, and I want everyone to know this, for 3 reasons. Never before did I hear these reasons when groups were involved. The first thing groups care about is the money. Right? Oh, yeah. Okay, but is there value? So if there's no value and we're off on a purchase price, can't buy you. Legally, if you're asking for striped M&Ms in your personal bathroom, it's going to be a problem as we go further, right? I mean, I want to dress up like Liberace and play the piano in between patients. That's not a problem. But if you're taking patient time, we're not going to love that. So it's being facetious. It's really about being in line with the group and the partnership opportunity.
But quality.
Third way is clinical. We have walked away from 2 deals because the dentistry was horrific. The numbers were good. We found that to be a little questionable. So it is completely in line. The better doctors really could seemingly be the more profitable dentists. Now, what would I say? Well, it's easy. The thing that'll kill any practice is staff, salaries. We must keep those salaries in line at about 50% of top line gross revenue. And that includes the doctor's compensation. So if I'm doing $1.4 million, that doesn't include profit. If I'm doing $1.4 million and I'm paying myself a salary and I'm at $700,000, right? So what we look for is a practice that takes
good.
Yeah, that's
good,
great.
Right?
That's great. So I'm left with $700,000. If I take off another 10 to 15, 20% for all the others, lab, marketing, professional fees, system repairs. If I take all of that, dental supplies, if I take all of that and I'm left with 30% of my top line revenue, that's phenomenal. 25%, very good. But if I see my staff salaries go to 70%, including me. Now, what I'm saying is that's your salary, that's incommensurate with what you make. And then you're left with, right? You just took 70% off of 1.4. So you have a $400,000 to $450,000 profit or EBITDA. That's additional to what this doctor was paid. That's excellent, because for that practice, you're going to be looking at something in the neighborhood of close to $3 million for that $1.4 million. But if I let these percentages get out of hand, if I don't watch what we order, if I don't put a governor on every month, what I did every time I bought a practice is I put a governor, a top line allowance of what they're allowed to buy. And after that number, you've got to come to me. Now, I was somebody who learned to get up very early in the morning, work out, do what I got to do, and get to the office long before anybody gets there to make sure that day is productive, to make sure I'm going through things that need to be answered, and to make sure my right arm, my captain, my manager is right there with me, because that's my COO. That person is running the operations, and she or he needs to know that we are focused on the problem. Last month, we ordered 32%. Now, I know doctors are saying, I don't want to deal with that. Then call me. I'd love to buy you cheap. You know, call me. If you don't care about that, call me. I'm your guy. I want guys and gals that run their business tremendously and work on those percentages. It's simple. And if you have a problem, please email me, ask me how. I'm here to help.
First of all, I love the perspective. I really appreciate that you're giving actual real numbers. And because you do this, you actually do this. The example, the details you're giving are what you look at. You walk away if there's no succession plan, because the doctor, I mean, these are incredible. If people wanted to reach out and ask you questions or wanted to just understand further, what would be the best way to get to you?
We're going to post, I think, post a email address, which will be my email address. I mean, honestly, I'm an open book. I love helping friends and people that have an interest in growing. And if you like what you hear from me and you want me to evaluate your practice, I'm going to give my email. I've been told not to, but I want to, and it's mine. It's Dr. Liechtung, Liechtung, Dr. Dr. Period, Liechtung at guardiandentistry.com. That's Guardian like the insurance company, but no relation, dentistry.com. And I will say that what I find today are the groups that are being, and we are a very successful, thank God, group. How do I deem success? I deem success by buying great practices and watching them go up, evaluating them and helping our dental partners to grow their practice. Now, how do we grow? Well, we evaluate the ordering. We evaluate the labs. We're not asking to change labs, but who wouldn't want to hear from us when we ask if they could come down about 10, 15%, but keep more practices? What we have great deals with great vendors. It's not just us. I'm not talking about Guardian. It's not a commercial. It's all the groups that come in with economy of scale. But us, doctors, we need to make sure that we're going to this stage in our careers ready. You only get one shot at this, and it puts you in a different light. Somebody who has a $3.5 million practice 5-10 years ago was looking to get 2.5, 2.7 if they were lucky. 60, 70, 70% of their gross revenue. It's a different story. If you have that $1.5 million, if you have $1 million of EBITA, you're running it at a what? A 30, 28% margin, which is great. You're up to $7-8 million. Anywhere from $6 to $8 million. It's a totally different world. That changes your life. That moves you to a different level. To come in and do dentistry because you love it, come and do dentistry because you want to mentor young doctors. And it's a phenomenal situation that dentistry has put ourselves in. I am very proud of our profession.
That is, well, first of all, so appreciate taking the time to share that. So appreciate how open and candid you are with regard to what's good, what's not good, what you got to be mindful of, especially taking the time with us. Now, everybody, this is just the first part of the series. This was all about financials. We could cover so many more aspects of it here. But right now, these are the key points that we want to leave with you. In our next episode, which will be next Thursday, Dr. Liechtung is going to share with us why dental hygiene is the tip of the spear and why production for each of the different components in your practice are key. In our third episode, he's going to share clinical planning, and there's something called a hum set. I'm not going to steal his thunder on that, but that's cool. And then finally, the end of this month, we're going to bring it all together. So, Dr. Liechtung, thank you so much. If people had questions about Guardian, what would be the best place to go to? You, or is there a website?
Please call. Yes, me. My title, and I'm going to give you a for instance, everyone, because this is, listen, speaking to Rolando, I'm going to tell you, I do a lot of interviews and meeting people, but Rolando is a dear friend. He really is. And I mean this sincerity. In all sincerity, he's a dear friend. We talk about a lot of different things in life. I know him for many years. I was a creator of Snap-on Smile. He was a great help to getting my product into the right hands, into Denmat, and it was great getting to know him over the years. But this is a passion, and the passion of finding a group. And I'm going to tell you something else for those of you that aren't aware. The groups, as we call them, are not the same. They have different business models. There are called DSOs, dental service organizations, and DPOs. We are a DPO. If someone has a bargain price for a practice, I don't care. We want partners.
You want quality dentistry. You want a succession plan.
Partner.
You want to have success, which is absolutely awesome. So,
Correct.
And by the way, check this out. Look at that.
Thank you. I really appreciate you, Sean. That's very nice.
So, hey, folks, if you like this content, please share. Please join us next week. Dr. Liechtung is going to talk about dental hygiene, why is tip of the spear in a dental practice, and continue this thread about this. And we started this back in Houston. We want to continue. The other thing that I want to share is if you like this, share it. If you have questions for us, please let us know. Really looking forward for you to join us again next week, Dr. Marc. I appreciate the kind words you said to me. Likewise, you've been a very, very incredibly helpful, knowledgeable person, and I'm grateful that you're willing to do this and share. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, looking forward to it. Have a great day. This is Dr. Marc Liechtung. My name is Rolando, Dental Voice. Looking forward to seeing you next week and learning more.